To start off, I gain full control of Violet and the siblings once the game turns the lights on. The moment I can use movement keys is when the speedrun begins. A key strategy in this run is using bomb spam, and we go to the merchant to sell our candies that fetch a high price in exchange for a bunch of lightning bombs. I also take a moment to learn a bunch of skills that I'll explain in a moment once we're between sections. The elements that I've decided to use for this run are Gravity and Radiation for Violet, Holy for Alex, and Threads for Amelia. Though it might sound like an unusual combo, there's a purpose for these elements that you'll get to see later in the run. An interesting quirk of skipping the prologue in Chapter 1 is that the Warp Crystal by Simons is not only online, but in the Fast Travel Hub, your Ghost Town's Warp Crystal is online as well. However, once you take it, it seems to only work one way due to our low-tech level. This is a problem since we'll need to return to North Caddis later, but thankfully there's a trick to overcome our tech level problems that we'll get to see in about 5 minutes. So now we're heading to Jahan's because he's about to give us the most important item we need for our run, which is the key to the old arena. At this moment, I'm mashing Z and enter literally as fast as I humanly can to get through this dialogue. This is going to be something you're going to have to be very used to if you decide to do the speedrun for yourself. You end up having to talk to him twice so that he can give you the key, and here I'm holding my right movement key to make sure that I don't accidentally talk to him a third time. In this game, you're allowed to buffer inputs, and for the purposes of this run, this just means that I can hold a direction and immediately go that way the moment I leave a conversation with someone. This proves to be really useful since I don't have to time the specific moment I leave a conversation, I can just hold a direction and the game will know to move me out of the way as soon as possible. And so, we go downstairs with the key. To explain our game plan, we want to defeat every monster in this arena while letting lightning bombs carry us the entire way through. We'll also have some tricks up our sleeves against some of the stronger enemies we encounter later. One major RNG aspect of this run is the amount of bombs that it takes to defeat enemies. The Stone Dog and Crystal Reaper you can usually get through with 2 bombs, but if you're really lucky, you can get through with 1. The Jester and onwards begin to average around 3 to 4 to 5 bombs, but again, it's mainly up to RNG the amount of bombs that it takes to defeat them. For people who are also seeing gameplay of Wooden Ocean for the first time, you might notice that I do more damage as the boss's HPs begin to drop. This is because of something called combat psychology in the game, which basically is just that. As you do more damage and apply more debuffs, the enemy in front of you ends up taking more damage. This also ends up applying to your party, and so you might find that they do a lot less damage at the beginning of fights because they might look afraid or sad. And so you also know that they're going to apply more damage if they look angry, or if it just so happens that the enemy you're fighting begins to take like 1000 damage for an attack that originally did like 10 HP of damage. The Crystal Bone Demon leaves me with less HP than I would have liked, so I end up having to take a few steps to heal. The way that healing works in this game is that for every step you take, you heal about 1 health. This is really important because for the next fight against the dragon, if my HP is low enough, I can lose the fight and be forced to reset the run, but you'll see what happens next. We use Headshot with Amelia to cause enemies to become confused, which in a best case scenario acts as a 2-turn stun. Smoke screens on Alex to increase our evasion to avoid some attacks that can kill us immediately. And for Violet, we use Quantum Bend to apply a debuff that allows us to apply 40% more damage to enemies. The smoke screens in particular are really useful since they increase our party's bomb damage by increasing our luck, which bombs use in their damage calculations. For good measure, we can also turn Alex's bombs into nukes by increasing his luck even further through the Contemplate skill. Though I should warn new players that if you're planning on doing this run for yourself, you should know that the Dragon and Hope, who we'll see in a minute, can sometimes just end your run even if you do everything right. Amelia's headshots are not always guaranteed to land, so if you miss that first headshot, you're going to have to pray that the Dragon or Hope don't wipe your party in the first or second turn. Thankfully though, the fights between the Dragon and Hope are not too bad, and you can just keep on spamming lightning bombs. Just make sure that you walk around a little bit if, after the Rex fight in particular, you take too much damage right before Hope. You also might be wondering why all these enemies receive the blessed status. This basically makes them weaker, and it happens when you play the game on the easiest difficulty, which I'm trying to do to clear this very long game as fast as possible. Though it should be noted that even though I'm playing on the easiest difficulty, the harder encounters can definitely still wipe your party and reset your run. The Hope fight is basically just a harder version of the Dragon fight, so everything I do in the Dragon fight I just do in Hope. The one little different thing that I do is that I choose to use aim with Amelia instead of using a bomb. This is because the confusion counter starts at 2 and decreases by an additional count for every hit I make. So I basically just make sure I only hit them once so that in the next turn I can just pelt them with all 3 bombs while Hope is still stunned. The moment that you leave the Hope battle is when I consider the old arena to be cleared, and so we move on to the next part of our run. Though before I get to the next part, I want to quickly explain why we use lightning bombs specifically. This is because most enemies in this game are weak to lightning, and so they don't resist it in the way that they might for ice or fire, and also because there's a 7% chance for our enemies to become paralyzed, which is a free one-turn stun with no catches. This is really useful because that free turn can just let us continue using bomb spam, and I also feel like that the paralyze weighs the damage psychology in your favor so that it ends up feeling like you do more damage. So that's the purpose for the lightning bombs. So after we've cleared the old arena, we want to go back to Caddis, but walking back takes a really long time, and we only have 1 tech level but need 2 to activate our Ghost Town's Warp Crystal. This turns out to not really be a problem since we can just buy a talent to increase our tech level immediately, which ends up saving us a lot of time. I'll pop back in once we're at the talents area to explain one small thing that also happens once we're there. The talent that you saw me take at the very end is called Divine Providence, which makes worrying about holy damage a thing in the past. This matters very, very late into the run, but essentially the whole point of clearing the old arena is to get both this talent and enough levels for the final encounter of this run. Anyways, we're going to want to go back to Caddis so that we can restock on our bombs. We're going to want to be able to restock by selling the Reaper Scythe, which while it looks really cool, we need to afford more bombs. We also want to make sure that we have enough money left over to purchase 2 juxtaposition staffs. These staffs will give Violet and Amelia enough MP to cast really powerful spells that we'll need at the end of this run. Juxtaposition allows us to repurpose Amelia so that she can learn the thread skill Reverse Law 1, which halves the spirit of enemies. This becomes really useful when you remember that enemies use their spirit stat to defend from lightning bomb damage. Those that are new to the game, spirit is basically this game's version of magic defense, though some more experienced players will get mad at me for describing it that way. I also take a moment to equip some accessories on the party, just because it might help for the final encounter, for either to survive a hit or 2 or to be faster. So once we get our bombs, our staffs, and have Amelia learn Reverse Law 1, we're good to go. All we need to do now is head up to the North Caddis Mines to finish up this section, which is not too bad since all you need to do is head north from the graveyards. Just make sure that you dodge Roland, who will force you into a dialogue interaction and cost you a little bit of time if you bump into him. After this point, there's not much to say other than you want to traverse the mines as fast as possible and be even faster with killing the ogre blocking your path. Hence the next split's name being Ogre Time. If you ignore some of the mechanical errors that I end up making in this run, the pathing I use should be the fastest way possible to the Infinite Hotel to reach the game's ending. Well, at least I'm pretty sure, though I'm sure somebody else will probably find something faster at some point. I also want to just take a moment right now to say that if you haven't already, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I feel like I'm less of a speedrunner at heart and more of a content creator, which will become more true as I make more videos. I have a lot of planned Wooden Ocean content that I think people will find interesting, and guides that I believe will make you a better Woshin player. Anyways, I'll pop back in when I feel like that there's something that I should comment on. For now, just enjoy the run. The ghost by this intersection, you just have to be patient with, and you can get around them pretty quickly. In this area, right before the ogre fight, that second ghost is usually almost always blocking your path. I somehow got really lucky in this run, and that didn't happen to me. I think one point of optimization for future runners to consider is how to manipulate the ghost's AI so that you can consistently avoid as many fights as possible. Anyways, you mash Z and enter and throw 2 lightning bombs and you should be good to go from this ogre fight. I want to take a moment to say that I think that this shortcut in Lower Rock is really cool. I didn't know about it at all until I was doing research for this run. This is a perfect segue to explain that there's still a lot that's not really known about this game in general, and so I think now is really the perfect time to get into the game since there's a lot that you can discover with other people. Me and a couple of other people are planning on launching an unofficial Wooden Ocean Discord so that we can figure out more things about this game. So if you're interested in contributing or you just want to talk about this really interesting game, the link should be in the description about a day or two after this video goes up. This video also should be going up around the time that the game's getting a sale, so if you didn't like the $20 price tag, right now it's a little bit cheaper, so I think it's worth checking out and buying if you have the money. But anyways, back to the run. This area is called the South of the Edge, and I accidentally do something that's very ungamer-like of me, which is run into two enemies that were completely avoidable. If your movement's clean, you can avoid all the enemies in this area. But unfortunately that doesn't happen to me here. I still get a good time though, so it's not like it mattered too much. In this area, you also want to be very careful to not run into worms, because they can put up a mud wall, which can resist your lightning bomb, which it doesn't actually do much, it just takes longer for you to kill them with lightning bombs. So that can cost you a little bit of time. But anyways, that doesn't happen to me here, so I get pretty lucky. Once you reach the Infinite Hotel, you also want to mash Z and enter as quickly as possible. One last semi-related thing that I wanted to mention is that I made this video to showcase this game's potential for speedrunning. I wouldn't be surprised that if in a day, or even in some hours, someone manages to get a sub 15 minute time, as if you've seen this run so far, there are massive potential optimizations waiting to be made and found, and perhaps gamers with more time than myself to show what's truly possible in this category. Again, I'm a content creator first, gamer second, and I think speedrunner sort of like fourth or fifth between like a few other things. But I genuinely think that this game has potential, because it's fun, and speedrunning it is also fun. I also want to mention that this video was recorded a day before bombs were nerfed, but it shouldn't really change much at all about the route, since the base 20% damage reduction is mostly meant for the later tiers of bombs that get kind of crazy amounts of damage. For the lightning bombs that we use in this run, it only reduces their damage by 15, and with the combat psychology, and if you just set up smokes beforehand, basically lets you do the same amount of damage anyways. So I don't personally think it'll change a lot. And I still think that this run is a good general template of how an any percent glitchless route should look, so I think that's worth also talking about. Anyways, back to the run and one last thing that I want to discuss, though in just a moment. The last fight is genuinely such a toss-up that it'll either be the easiest thing you've ever done in your life, or you'll be forced to reset almost immediately once the enemy takes their turn. Because of this, you're going to want to stack as many debuffs as possible, and you want to begin by using Quantum Bend to increase their damage taken, use Reverse Law with Amelia, and set up Contemplate and Smoke with Alex so that he can do as much damage as possible. You're also going to want to use Mass Quarter Life on the second turn specifically, because I'm 90% sure if you use it on the first turn, it won't apply to the other enemies that reveal themselves on the second turn. And again, there's still a chance that you just end up losing the battle just because the enemy decided to use a move that one-shots your entire party, and there's nothing you can do about it. But there's also the chance that nothing wrong happens and you end up beating the run. So your mileage may vary. And I'll also come back in just a moment. In this specific moment, when the boss uses Divine Light, is the entire reason I got the Divine Providence talent and Holy on Alex. Without the resist provided by both, I would have gotten wiped immediately. But I got so lucky that while I didn't record it, I was literally out of my seat when it happened because I was so proud that this resist actually mattered at the very last moment of the run. And so, I got my record of 16 minutes and 29 seconds, beating this game in less than 17 minutes. I believe the run ends the moment you complete the angel fight, since that's the last meaningful input of the run, and from my understanding in speedrunner terms, the last meaningful input is the part that matters for finishing a run. Remember to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll be in the comments below. I encourage players to try this route for themselves, since my record is 100% beatable with enough practice. This game is genuinely a lot of fun, and by the time that this video gets released, it should also be on sale, so consider checking it out, and thanks for watching.